There comes a moment in every man's life when the room goes silent, not because it's empty, but because he finally realizes no one is listening. He looks around and sees familiar faces, but not one of them truly knows the battles he's fighting in the dark. He walks into the world wearing a smile. No one sees how heavy his heart is. He sits among crowds, but he feels like a stranger. Alone, forgotten, seen. A man with no friends. Oh, how it aches. This kind of loneliness that doesn't just sit in your chest, but wraps itself around your soul. It's not just the absence of companionship, it's the haunting feeling that if you disappeared today, the world would keep spinning and nobody would notice. I'm talking to the man who's tired of being the strong one, to the one who encourages everybody else, but has no one checking on him, to the one who's mastered the art of hiding his pain. You walk through life like a ghost, present but invisible. You've done right by others. You've given, you've sacrificed, you've poured out love, and yet when your soul was starving, nobody came with bread. When your heart was shivering, nobody brought you warmth. You've asked yourself questions you're too afraid to say out loud. What's wrong with me? Why don't I belong? How can a man be surrounded and still so alone? But listen closely. Just because no one's clapping for you now doesn't mean heaven hasn't written your name in gold. Just because no one checks in doesn't mean God isn't watching over you. Just because the world doesn't embrace you doesn't mean your life lacks value. In fact, some of the most powerful men in history walked alone. And it wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You see, isolation doesn't always mean rejection. Sometimes it means distinction. You weren't born to fit in, you were chosen to stand out. And before God gives a man influence, He often gives him silence. Before God gives a man a platform, He gives him pain. Because it's in the ache of loneliness that a man finds the fire of purpose. It's in the emptiness that God begins to fill him with something the world could never give and can never take away. So don't count yourself out because you have no friends. Don't look at your life and see lack. Look deeper and see divine design. This wilderness you're in might just be the training ground for a destiny bigger than your name, wider than your reach, and deeper than your dreams. The man with no friends may just be the man God is molding for greatness. Now, let me show you the truth about what you're walking through. Your loneliness is not a curse. It's a calling. What you're feeling, what you're walking through, pressing against your heart so hard that it's difficult to breathe some nights. It is not punishment. It is not abandonment. It is not evidence that you are broken beyond repair. It is not proof that you are unlovable. It is not a mark of shame. That ache you feel in your chest, that hollow space where friendship should be, that quiet walk through the days when no one checks in, no one calls, no one notices if you're smiling or not, that space is holy ground. That space is sacred. That space is where God meets a man and begins the most important transformation of his life. You think you're cursed because you're alone. The heavens are saying, finally I have your full attention. Loneliness has a way of bringing a man to his knees. Not in weakness, but in readiness. When the applause stops, when the conversations dry up, when the phone stays silent and the calendar is empty, it is there that the still, small voice begins to speak. The voice that says, I never needed you to be surrounded. I needed you to be surrendered. There are things God can only tell a man when he is by himself. There are assignments He can only give in the absence of noise. There are dreams too sacred to be spoken in crowds. And maybe, just maybe, your season of isolation is God's invitation into something so much deeper than popularity, so much higher than comfort, so much greater than having people to sit with at lunch or celebrate your birthday. Maybe it is your burning bush moment. Maybe it is the start of your wilderness journey, not to destroy you, but to define you. Every great man of purpose in the pages of eternity walked through the shadows of loneliness. Not one was called by God without being first stripped of man's applause. Look at the shepherd boy who became a king. David, alone in the field with nothing but sheep and stars for company. While his brothers were being paraded before the prophet, he was left out, forgotten, overlooked. But it was in that solitude where he learned to sing songs no one had written, to fight battles no one had seen, to become the kind of man who could slay giants not because he was trained in war, but because he was trained in waiting. And it was in the waiting, in the obscurity, in the silence, where he found his power. Loneliness is not weakness. It is the forge of warriors. It is the space where strength is born in secret. It is where character grows when nobody's watching. It is where dreams are tested, not for how loud they sound, for how long they last when there's no one clapping for them. You may be crying now, but tears have a way of watering the roots of destiny. You may be tired now, but tired men often hear God more clearly because their own voice has finally gone quiet. You may be alone, but you are not abandoned. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible to the one who formed you in the secret place. And the reason you feel like you don't belong anywhere is because you were not created to stay where you are. Let the ache push you closer to the truth that this world cannot fill you, that people, as good as they can be, were never meant to replace the voice of your Creator. That applause fades, friendships falter, people change, but purpose, real, divine purpose, endures. That stillness you hate is where your next chapter is being written. That silence is the scroll upon which God is etching your name. That loneliness isn't the absence of love. It's the birthplace of calling. Before God gives you an audience, He'll teach you to speak in the desert. Before He places you before nations, He'll teach you how to kneel when there's no spotlight. He'll make sure your identity is rooted not in who surrounds you, but in who sent you. You've been asking why you've been excluded, why you've been misunderstood, why you keep pouring into people who don't pour back, why your phone lights up only when someone needs something, why no one sees the weight you're carrying. And I tell you, it's because you're being carved, crushed, you're being molded, not ignored. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. Sometimes God removes people not because they're bad, because they're a distraction. Because what He's building in you cannot be shared just yet. Because if they saw what He was doing, they'd try to label it too soon, box it in too small, diminish it before it takes shape. So He hides you. He cloaks you. He puts you in a place where you can cry out without restraint, where your soul can groan and grow and be transformed without interference. Do not despise the silence. Do not hate the nights when no one checks on you. Do not curse the seasons where you walk alone. Walk them with your head held high, knowing that every step is ordered, that every lonely morning is laced with hidden purpose, that every quiet evening is a chapter in the sacred story being written with your name on it. You are not being left out. You are being called out. And not everyone can go where you're going. Not everyone can walk the road you're about to take. Not everyone can understand the depth of what's being built in you. So let them misunderstand. Let them forget. Let them move on. What's ahead of you is worth everything you're walking through right now. There is a glory reserved for those who've walked through the wilderness. There is a fire placed in the hearts of men who've wept in silence but still got up. There is a strength forged in isolation that no stage can give, no crowd can manufacture. The man who has walked alone with God becomes a man who can lead others through the fire. The man who has cried out in the dark becomes the voice others follow toward the light. You are not the forgotten. You are the forerunner. You are not the rejected. You are the refined. And your loneliness is not a curse. It is the hand of God gently, fiercely, lovingly separating you for something the world has not yet seen. Do not try to rush this season. Don't try to fill the space with noise. Don't numb the silence with shallow relationships. Let the emptiness teach you. Let the loneliness cleanse you. Let the quiet moments birth clarity, because when the time is right, you will emerge not just healed, but transformed, not just stronger, but wiser, not just whole, but ready to carry what others couldn't, ready to walk where others refused, ready to stand when others fell. The man who had no friends becomes the man others seek when the storm comes, because he knows how to survive when there's no hand to hold but God's. You're not the only one who's felt this. You're not the first, and you will not be the last. But if you endure, if you hold fast, if you trust that this pain has a purpose, you will find that what you thought was rejection was really protection. That what you thought was loneliness was preparation. And that what you called a curse was really your calling. You are being built for something greater. So stand tall even if you're standing alone. Because heaven is watching, history is being written, and your story is just beginning. The absence of friends doesn't mean the absence of God. You may look around and see no one by your side, no one cheering you on, no one lifting your arms when you're too tired to keep fighting. But that doesn't mean you've been forsaken. It doesn't mean you're walking through the storm alone. It doesn't mean heaven has gone silent on you. It doesn't mean your prayers are falling on deaf ears. And it most certainly does not mean that the Creator of your soul has turned His face away from you. Just because you don't see the hands doesn't mean they're not holding you. Just because you don't hear the voice doesn't mean it's not speaking. Just because the room is empty doesn't mean the presence of God isn't filling it from corner to corner, wrapping around your weary heart, surrounding you in ways the natural eye can't comprehend. There is a lie that loneliness tries to whisper in the quiet. It says you are forgotten. It says you are unloved. It says everyone has moved on and left you behind. And if you're not careful, you'll begin to believe that the silence around you is a reflection of your worth. You'll begin to believe that because people left, God must have too. Nothing could be further from the truth. The people who walked away, they were never your source. The friends who stopped calling, they were never the foundation. The voices that went silent, they were never the voice of destiny. God does not measure His love for you by the presence of friends. His commitment to you is not based on your popularity. His faithfulness is not determined by who stays and who leaves. In fact, some of the most divine encounters take place when the room is empty, when the phone doesn't ring, when the crowds disappear. Some of the most sacred conversations between God and man happen when no one else is around to hear them. God knows how to step into an empty room and turn it into a sanctuary. He knows how to enter your lowest valley and fill it with light. He knows how to walk into the silence of your isolation and whisper words that heal what no one else even knows is broken. You don't need a crowd to be covered. You don't need company to be called. You don't need friends to be favored. The absence of people does not mean the absence of God. You might feel like you've been left out, like you've been left behind, like everyone else is someone but you. God has a history of walking closest to the ones the world overlooks. When Joseph was thrown into a pit by his brothers, there was no one around to console him, no friend to pull him out, no hand to pat his back. But God was with him. When he was sold into slavery and falsely accused and thrown into prison for a crime he didn't commit, no one wrote him letters. No one checked on him. No friend came to his defense, but God was there. The Bible says over and over again, and the Lord was with Joseph. That's not just a verse, that's a promise. That even when friends vanish, even when family fails, even when the system forgets you, God does not leave. You may think the absence of others is evidence that something is wrong with you, that you've failed, that you're not worthy of love or support. But sometimes God allows people to fall away so that you can fall into His arms. Sometimes He clears the room so that you stop leaning on voices that were never meant to guide you. Sometimes He removes the distractions so that you can finally hear what He's been saying all along. Because God does not want to share your attention. He's not interested in competing with everyone else for your heart. So He waits. And when the room grows quiet, when the crowd grows thin, when the friends disappear, He steps in. Not because He just arrived, but because you can finally see Him. You might feel like no one understands what you're going through, and maybe they don't. But God does. He sees the tears you won't let fall in public. He hears the cries you silence with a smile. He knows the weight you're carrying, the questions you're too afraid to ask, the fear that sometimes creeps in at night when you wonder if anyone truly cares. And in those moments when you're too tired to speak and too broken to move, He wraps you in grace, not judgment, not disappointment, but grace, the kind that whispers, "You are not alone. I'm still here." God's presence does not depend on your popularity. He does not show up because the room is full. He does not move based on how many people validate you. In fact, His presence is most powerful in the places where no one else dares to go. He walks into the prison cell. He sits beside the brokenhearted. He stands beside the outcast. He visits the abandoned. He shows up for the rejected. God isn't drawn to the proud and praised. He's drawn to the desperate and forgotten. So if you feel unseen by the world, you are seen by heaven. If you feel unheard, your whisper is louder in the throne room than you can imagine. If you feel like no one is standing with you, I promise you this, there is one who never left. Loneliness can feel like a desert, but deserts are where God speaks. Ask Moses, ask Elijah. Ask Jesus Himself. Every man who was used by God in mighty ways walked through a season of solitude. It wasn't because God abandoned them. It was because God was preparing them. Because when everything else is stripped away, when every crutch is gone, when every voice is silent, that's when you finally learn the sound of His whisper. That's when you stop leaning on human understanding and start trusting divine direction. That's when you move from religion to relationship, from routine to revelation, from crowds to calling. Don't measure your worth by the number of people who check on you. Don't define your value by who invites you out. Don't let the absence of others convince you that you're unworthy of love. You are loved beyond comprehension by the one who formed you. You are held by hands that never drop what they carry. You are seen by eyes that never sleep. And you are heard by ears that attend to every cry, every sigh, every groan too deep for words. You are not alone. You have never been alone. The presence of God doesn't fade when others leave. It grows, it intensifies, it becomes more personal, more intimate, more real. The ones who feel the most alone are often the ones God is calling the deepest. Because the more He wants to do through you, the more He needs to do in you. And that kind of work doesn't happen in crowds. That kind of work happens in caves, in prisons, in deserts, in lonely gardens where you cry out, "Let this cup pass from me," and still say, "Nevertheless, not my will, but yours." That's where greatness is forged. That's where power is birthed. That's where heaven's fire falls on an altar of surrender. You may be walking a path that feels deserted. You may be in a season where it feels like everyone has someone but you. But you are not forsaken. You are not forgotten. You are being watched over by the one who neither slumbers nor sleeps. You are being led by the one who orders every step, even the painful ones. You are being comforted by the Spirit who draws closer than a brother, closer than a friend. The absence of friends has never disqualified a man from purpose, but the absence of God, that is the only thing to fear. And you, my friend, are not absent of God. You are surrounded by Him. So walk forward with your head lifted high. Not because people approve, because God has chosen you. Not because others celebrate you, because heaven has anointed you. Not because friends support you, but because grace sustains you. Your journey is not over. Your story is not small. And your worth is not defined by who stays or who leaves. The absence of friends may hurt, but the presence of God heals. It strengthens. It restores. And it will carry you through every storm, every valley, every lonely night, until the day you look back and realize you were never truly alone, not for a single moment. Being misunderstood is one of the deepest pains a man can carry. To have a heart full of pure intentions and yet be seen through a lens of suspicion. To offer love and be met with distance. To extend kindness and have it misread as weakness. To walk in truth and be labeled arrogant. To live in purpose and be called proud. Act in faith and be treated like a fool. There is something indescribably painful about knowing who you are before God and yet being mistaken by men. It is the ache of being misnamed, misjudged, and misrepresented while your soul cries out for someone, anyone, to truly see you. Not the mask, not the moment, not the mistake, but the man, and yet no one does. That loneliness of being surrounded by people but still unknown, still unseen, still inaccurately defined. It is a cross few can bear without breaking. But those who endure it, those who press through the fire of misunderstanding without losing their character, without shrinking back, without changing to fit the world's definition. They are the ones God uses to shake the earth. You were not created to be understood by everyone. You were not formed in your mother's womb to fit into man's categories or their limited boxes. You were not designed to be palatable, acceptable, or conventional. You were made by God's hands, with God's breath, for God's purpose, and that purpose will always confuse those who look at you through the lens of familiarity, jealousy, or small thinking. The truth is, some people don't see you for who you are because it would challenge everything they think they know. It would confront their comfort. It would convict their compromise. And instead of dealing with their own lack of purpose, it's easier to dismiss yours. So they talk, they mislabel, they gossip, they distort. Not because you are wrong, but because you are different. And different will always be dangerous to those who fear change. It hurts to be misunderstood. It hurts when your silence is read as indifference. When your confidence is mistaken for arrogance. When your standards are mocked as judgment. When your passion is called obsession. When your separation from certain people or places is seen as self-righteousness. It hurts when your loyalty is questioned because you couldn't be everything to everyone. It hurts when the ones you've served the most are the quickest to believe the worst about you. When the very people you've helped are the first to walk away. You must understand this pain is not pointless. This wound is not wasted. This misunderstanding is not the end of your story. It is the doorway to a deeper kind of strength. A strength that is not built on being seen, but on being secure. A strength that is not drawn from applause, from assignment. If they misunderstand you, let them. If they talk, let them. If they mislabel you, let them. You do not need to correct every lie, chase every rumor, or defend yourself in every conversation. God never anoints a man to be understood. He anoints him to be obedient. He doesn't call you so you can win a popularity contest. He calls you so you can change the atmosphere, so you can shift things, break things, build things. And that kind of calling will always be lonely. That kind of calling will always be misunderstood. Because the higher the purpose, the smaller the crowd. The deeper the assignment, the fewer the people who can relate. Some will never understand your decisions because they were never meant to walk your path at the lives of those God used, truly used, to shape the course of history. They were all misunderstood. Noah was laughed at for building a boat when it had never rained. Moses was mocked for talking to a bush and confronting a Pharaoh. David was disregarded as a boy with a sling. Elijah was hunted for standing alone in righteousness. Jeremiah was weeping while others were celebrating destruction. John the Baptist was eating locusts in the wilderness, crying out for repentance while people chased popularity. Jesus himself, perfect in every way, was rejected by his own, called a liar, accused of being possessed, betrayed, mocked, and crucified. If the sinless Son of God was misunderstood, why are we surprised when we are? Being misunderstood isn't just part of the journey. It is proof you're on the right one. Because truth is always a threat to lies. Light always offends darkness. Authenticity always disrupts the fake. And when your life starts to reflect the boldness of heaven, it will disturb the comfort of hell. People won't always have the language for your journey. They won't understand your convictions, your boundaries, your tears, your fire. They won't get why you no longer laugh at certain jokes, why you walk away from certain places, why you'd rather be alone with God than included with people who pull you away from Him. They won't understand your silence, your focus, your refusal to settle. They won't understand the oil you carry because they never saw the crushing that produced it. Let them misread you. Let them misunderstand your motives. Let them create false narratives. You don't owe anyone an explanation for the call God placed on your life. You don't have to dilute your purpose to fit into rooms that were never designed for you. You don't have to bow to the pressure of being likable when you've been chosen to be light. You don't have to be accessible to everyone when God is making you available to Him. He will use your isolation to build a foundation no lie can shake. He will use their misunderstanding to strengthen your message. He will use their rejection to redirect you to rooms filled with divine connections. Pain you're feeling, It's not just emotional, it's spiritual. It's not just the sting of human rejection, it's the refining fire of divine preparation. God is teaching you to be unmoved, to not flinch when they whisper, to not shrink when they scoff, to not bend when they misunderstand. Because He needs you anchored, He needs you immovable. He needs you to stand when others fold, to walk when others whiner, to declare when others remain silent. And if He has to use misunderstanding to get you there, so be it. If He has to isolate you to solidify your identity, He will. If He has to remove every person who distorts your view of yourself, He will. Not to punish you, to purify you. Not to shame you, but to shape you. So carry the pain with dignity. Don't let it turn you bitter. Don't let it make you small. Don't let it force you to explain your purpose to people who can't comprehend it. Keep walking. Keep building. Keep obeying. Let the fruit of your life be the answer to every accusation. Let your endurance be the response to every false perception. Let your integrity speak louder than their assumptions. Time will reveal what God has placed in you. Fire always proves the gold. Storms always prove the anchor. And misunderstanding always proves the motive. You were never called to be everyone's favorite. You were called to be faithful. You were never called to fit in. You were called to stand out. You were never called to be safe. You were called to be set apart. So stop mourning their misunderstanding and start rejoicing in your clarity. You know who you are. You know whose you are. You know why you're walking this path. And if no one else gets it, that's okay. God gets it. God sees. God knows. And when the time is right, He will bring the right voices, the right support, the right people who will see you and not be threatened, who will hear you and not twist your words, who will walk with you without trying to change you. Until then, endure the fire. Let it refine you. Let it focus you. Let it cleanse you of every need for approval. Let it strip you of every desire to be understood by people who were never meant to walk your road. Let it drive you to your knees, where your identity is not shaken by whispers, but secured in worship. You may be misunderstood by man, but you are known by God. You are held by God. You are chosen by God. And there is no misunderstanding powerful enough to undo the hand of God on your life. There is a sacred pain in being the man who is forgotten, not just left behind, but erased, not just overlooked, but unseen. You show up for others when they call. You answer the phone at midnight. You pray when they're hurting. You give when you barely have anything left. You stand in the background clapping when their life takes off, cheering with no jealousy in your heart. But when it's your turn, no one shows up. When you fall, there's no one reaching to lift you. When you cry, no one even notices. When you bleed, they call it dramatic. When you disappear, they don't ask where you went. They just move on. Being forgotten cuts deep, not because you needed recognition, because you gave from a place of love, and love longs to be remembered. To be forgotten after all you gave, after all you endured for people who never once asked how you were doing, after all the times you carried others on your back while your own soul was crumbling. It leaves a scar that feels eternal. It is the cry of a man who once thought his presence mattered, only to learn that people often love what you do more than they love who you are. And once you're no longer useful, they forget you existed. You're not missed. You're not mourned. You're not even a topic in the room you helped build. And yet, despite the emptiness, you're still expected to be strong, still expected to smile, still expected to get up, and keep going like your heart hasn't been shattered by the silence. But there is something powerful about the forgotten man. There is a mystery, a holiness, a fire that heaven places on the man who has been abandoned by the crowd. Because that man, that broken, left behind, unseen man, he becomes the one God fills. He becomes the vessel that no one was watching, but God was molding. He becomes the secret weapon, the unexpected rise, the stone the builders rejected. He becomes dangerous to the kingdom of darkness because he has nothing left to lose. He doesn't live for applause anymore. He doesn't need validation. He's not driven by likes or platforms. He's been crushed but not destroyed, forsaken but not forgotten by God. That man walks with a strength that no public affirmation could give him, because his strength was built in the silence, in the isolation, in the ache, in the wilderness. God sees what man forgets. He remembers every tear. He hears every groan. He writes every unseen sacrifice in his book. Not one moment of your giving heart went unnoticed in the courts of heaven. Not one lonely night was hidden from his sight. Not one forgotten birthday, not one ignored text, not one canceled meeting, not one lonely walk was wasted. He saw it all. And he is not just a comforter, he is a rewarder. He is the one who makes sure that those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Not because of people, but in spite of people. Because when man forgets, God remembers. When man walks away, God steps closer. When the room no longer echoes with your name, heaven begins to whisper it into the hearts of those He's preparing to bless you through. Do not let being forgotten make you bitter. Don't let it close your heart. Don't let it change your nature. Don't let the silence make you question your worth. Don't let the absence of celebration convince you that you've failed. What if being forgotten by them was the only way to be found by Him? What if the silence of people was the preparation for the sound of heaven? What if their neglect was heaven's way of extracting you from the wrong rooms so you could be placed in the right ones? What if the people who left you behind were not a loss, but a gift? What if being forgotten was the beginning of your rising? The most dangerous man is the one who's been forgotten but still believes. The one who's been overlooked but still builds. The one who's been ignored but still prays. The one who's been excluded but still loves. Because that man cannot be stopped. He doesn't serve for credit. He doesn't give for claps. He doesn't move for recognition. He moves for purpose. He's led by fire. He's driven by something eternal, something deeper than feelings, something holy. He walks through empty rooms with the posture of a king because he knows he's not walking alone. Heaven walks with him. Favor follows him. Oil drips from him. And God fights for him, even when no one else will. To be forgotten by men is not a curse. It is often a calling. Because the moment you stop trying to prove yourself to people who were never assigned to your destiny, you start becoming who God designed you to be. Stop performing. You stop striving. You stop needing applause to feel alive. And in that space, in that quiet, brutal, sacred space, God breathes. He speaks. He heals. He restores. And He builds a version of you that you didn't even know existed. One that's stronger, clearer, deeper. One that doesn't crumble at rejection. One that doesn't bend at loneliness. One that isn't defined by who stayed or who left. One that knows, deep in the marrow of your bones, that even if no one ever claps for you again, even if no one ever remembers your name, you will still show up, still fight, still love, still pour, still walk in integrity, because you were never doing it for them anyway. Some of the most anointed men you will ever meet are the ones nobody ever talks about. The ones in the back. The ones who aren't invited to the table. The ones who aren't tagged, aren't followed, aren't praised. But when they speak, heaven moves. When they pray, demons tremble. When they worship, the ground shakes. Because they've been hidden. They've been crushed. They've been forgotten by man, but seen by God. And that kind of oil doesn't come from platforms. It comes from pain. That kind of glory doesn't come from popularity. It comes from being processed in secret. If you've been forgotten, thank God. Thank Him that He removed every voice that would have distracted you. Thank Him for every party you weren't invited to. Thank Him for every platform that said no. Thank Him for every crowd that overlooked you. Thank Him for every group that didn't see your worth. Because had they accepted you, you would have settled. Had they included you, you would have diluted your fire. Had they applauded you, you might have stayed where you were never meant to stay. But God, in His mercy, let you be forgotten so He could remind you. Your identity is not in man, it's in Him. Your value is not in their validation, it's in His voice. Your purpose is not tied to their presence. It's rooted in your obedience. Don't fight to be remembered by people who are only passing through your story. Don't strive to be known in rooms that are beneath your calling. Don't chase the ones who couldn't see the treasure God hid in you. Let them forget. Let them move on. Let them act like you were never there. Because when God remembers, everything changes. When God says your name, doors open. When God sends favor, no man can block it. When God writes your story, no human pen can erase it. So walk tall, even if no one's watching. Serve well, even if no one claps. Love deeply, even if it's never returned. Generously, even if it's never acknowledged. Speak truth, even if it costs you. Show up with integrity, even if the room is empty. Heaven is watching, and when heaven remembers, it never forgets. When heaven rewards, it overflows. When heaven lifts you, no man can bring you down. You may be the man with no friends, no claps, no likes, no spotlight. But you are not empty. You are not alone. You are not lost. You are simply hidden for a greater purpose, a higher call, a deeper glory. So let the world forget. Let people walk away. Let the silence stretch long and cold. And while they forget you, let heaven form you. Let God mold you. Let him build the man who doesn't need recognition to keep going. That man, forgotten by men, remembered by God, is the one held fears the most. You have walked a road few dare to travel, the road of loneliness, misunderstanding, and being forgotten. Yet in that very place of silence and solitude, God has been quietly shaping you into a man of unshakable strength, unwavering purpose, and unmatched destiny. Remember this, your worth is not measured by the number of friends you have, the applause you receive, or the recognition the world offers. Your true value is found in the hands of the one who created you, who sees every tear, who honors every sacrifice, and who is preparing you for a glory that surpasses human understanding. Stand firm in your calling, walk boldly in your truth, and know that even when the world turns away, God will never forget you. You are chosen, you are cherished, and your season of greatness is coming. Hold fast, for the man with no friends is often the man who changes everything.